Welcome to the Bare Metal Cider CRISC Prepcast. This series helps you prepare for the exam with focused explanations and practical context. Identifying impact is one of the most critical parts of IT risk analysis, because risk is ultimately a combination of likelihood and impact. While likelihood tells us how probable an event may be, impact determines how serious the consequences will be if the event actually occurs. Without understanding impact, there is no way to prioritize or treat a risk effectively. Some risks may be highly likely but low impact and require minimal attention. Others may be rare but could cause major damage. CRISC professionals must analyze both potential impact, meaning what might happen, and realized impact, meaning what did happen. Impact informs whether a risk is worth mitigating, accepting, or escalating. On the exam, misjudging the impact of a risk is a common theme that often leads to misaligned responses, overinvestment, or dangerous undertreatment. Potential impacts can be grouped into several key categories, and each tells a different story about how a risk affects the organization. Financial impact includes loss of revenue, increased costs to recover from incidents, or fines resulting from compliance failures. Operational impact refers to system downtime, process delays, productivity disruptions, or increased manual workload. Reputational impact covers the erosion of customer trust, damage to brand perception, and negative attention from the public or media. Regulatory impact includes failure to comply with laws, resulting in investigations, lawsuits, or enforced corrective actions. Finally, strategic impact involves failure to meet business objectives, such as delayed product launches, derailed digital transformation initiatives, or missed growth targets. CRISC professionals must understand that risk is multidimensional. On the exam, good answers consider which type of impact is most relevant to the scenario and how it connects back to business outcomes. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. After an incident occurs, the organization must assess the realized impact, what actually happened, what it cost, and how operations were affected. This step is part of post-incident analysis and is essential for updating the risk register, validating or adjusting risk scores, and refining treatment strategies. Actual business losses, customer dissatisfaction, legal consequences, and reputational harm must all be measured against what was expected during risk planning. If the realized impact is much higher than anticipated, this suggests a gap in the initial analysis and may expose weak assumptions. Risk scores and residual risk values must then be recalibrated to reflect new insights. A common exam scenario might involve underestimated residual risk or a treatment plan that did not match the impact level. The best answers will include updating the risk register, refining impact estimates, and adjusting future risk evaluation practices accordingly. CRISC professionals use several data sources to estimate impact, and each source contributes a different layer of insight. The business impact analysis helps define which systems and processes are most critical and how their failure affects the organization. Incident reports and loss logs provide historical evidence of what previous failures have cost. Financial models and forecasting data help quantify what losses would mean in terms of dollars, market share, or productivity. Stakeholder interviews offer contextual input, especially when trying to understand how non-financial impacts like reputation or morale affect operations. Customer impact surveys and satisfaction metrics can also reveal downstream consequences of incidents. Previous risk assessments, audit reports, and post-mortem reviews add further validation. On the exam, questions that ask how to estimate impact or what data is missing will reward those who use multiple sources to build a complete picture. One of the most valuable skills in CRISC practice is the ability to connect IT risk to business objectives. This involves mapping technical assets to the business processes they support, and then tracing how disruption in one area causes failure or delay in another. This is known as building an impact chain, which might begin with a failed system, lead to a broken workflow, and result in a missed customer obligation or lost revenue. CRISC professionals must be able to trace these chains from the control layer up to strategic outcomes and stakeholder concerns. If a firewall misconfiguration leads to system downtime, and that system supports the customer portal, the real impact is not just a technical fault, it is a business interruption. On the exam, questions that describe process failures often require you to understand how technical events cascade into organizational consequences, and the correct answers will always follow the impact path through business logic, not just technical symptoms. To support consistent analysis, impact must be scored using either qualitative scales or quantitative estimates. A qualitative approach uses categories such as low, medium, and high impact, often defined by narrative criteria. A quantitative approach might assign dollar values, percentages of revenue, number of hours lost, or customer satisfaction scores. Whichever method is used, consistency is essential. Every business unit and every assessment team must use the same definitions and thresholds so that risk can be compared and prioritized fairly. Scoring may also be weighted to reflect business priorities. For example, a medium financial loss may be more important than a high reputational risk in certain sectors. On the exam, scoring that is too vague or improperly calibrated usually leads to flawed prioritization. Good answers will reflect scoring systems that are documented, validated, and aligned with the organization's risk appetite. Recognizing the early signs of realized impact is critical for responding in time. Spikes in help desk calls, user complaints, or system alerts can indicate that something is going wrong. Downtime logs, monitoring tools, and SLA violations can show when systems are no longer meeting expectations. Failed transactions, delays in processing, or temporary manual workarounds can reveal breakdowns in automation or performance. Regulatory inquiries, customer grievances, or negative press may point to a reputational or compliance incident already in progress. These indicators are important not just for response, but also for detecting when a risk has moved from theoretical to actual. On the exam, scenarios that include warning signs require the test taker to identify that a latent risk has become an active one. The best responses connect indicators to impact and recommend escalated review or mitigation. Escalation is not just about urgency. It is about knowing when impact demands a wider response. Different impact categories may trigger different escalation paths. For example, a financial loss above a certain dollar amount might require CFO involvement, while a data breach could trigger legal notification or regulatory disclosure. CRISC professionals must define escalation thresholds based on impact levels and document these in incident response or governance playbook. The timing of escalation is also important. Failing to act quickly can increase damage. Best practices involve having pre-approved escalation procedures with roles, responsibilities, and timelines clearly defined. On the exam, escalation questions often ask who should be notified, when they should be involved, and why the decision must be made. Good answers will be tied to the level of impact, the type of consequence, and the urgency of the response needed. Impact plays a central role in determining how risks are treated and how they are communicated to the organization. Risks with high potential impact often require stronger controls, board-level visibility, or greater investment in mitigation. Treatment plans must consider not just likelihood, but also the severity of what could happen if the risk materializes. Communication must be clear, and reports should explicitly link residual risk levels to what they mean for the organization, whether that is financial loss, operational downtime, or customer dissatisfaction. CRISC professionals must make sure that impact is not buried in technical detail, but expressed in terms that support executive decision-making. On the exam, questions that ask how to prioritize treatment or report risk status should always consider the magnitude of impact. The best answers reflect clear alignment between impact severity, risk communication, and action taken. When answering CRISC exam questions related to impact, your thinking must always include the connection between its symptoms and business consequences. One question may ask what the most significant impact is, and your answer must go beyond the surface technical issue to highlight the broader business disruption. Another question may ask what was missed in a risk assessment, and the correct answer could be an overlooked stakeholder or an underestimated impact scope. You may also be asked how a risk should be escalated, and the right answer will depend on whether impact thresholds have been defined and met. A failed response may be traced back to an inaccurate or misapplied impact rating. The best answers in all these cases show that you understand proportionality, business alignment, and how evidence supports prioritization. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cyber CRISC Prepcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com.